I gave up everything to protect my brother. But when it was his turn to stand up for me, he threw me under the bus to save his cheating wife. And now he wants my help to fix the marriage he destroyed me for. Asterisk, they say blood is thicker than water. They say family always has your back. I believed that. I lived that. For years, my brother, Daniel, was my world. My protector, my confidant, my best friend. We were inseparable, to halves of a whole, navigating the complexities of life with an unspoken understanding that transcended words. I would have walked through fire for him, and I did. I sacrificed, I endured, I put his happiness, his future, above my own. But when it was my turn, when I needed him, when the truth stared him in the face, he chose. He chose a lie. He chose a betrayal. He chose to sacrifice me. I wasn't just betrayed by blood. I was betrayed by choice. And that is a wound that never truly heals. Asterisk, the bond we had, Noah, at 33, carried the quiet strength of a man who would always put others first. His hands, calloused from years of tinkering with circuit boards and coding late into the night, weareth hands of a creator, a builder. He owned a small but thriving IT business, a testament to his relentless work ethic and his innate ability to solve complex problems. But beneath the calm exterior, a deep well of loyalty resided. A loyalty forged in the crucible of a shared childhood with his older brother, Daniel. Daniel, 36, was the charismatic one, the natural leader, the one who always seemed to effortlessly command attention. He was married to Leah, a woman whose beauty was as undeniable as her cunning. A fact Noah had subtly, instinctively recognized from their first meeting. Their childhood, a kaleidoscope of scraped knees, whispered secrets, and boisterous laughter, was punctuated by Daniel's frequent skirmishes. Daniel, with his quick temper and even quicker wit, often found himself in the thick of playground disputes. And Noah, smaller but fiercely protective, was always there, a shadow at his brother's back. Harry remembered one particular incident, a vivid tableau etched into his memory. Daniel, cornered by a group of older, bigger kids, his face a mask of defiance. Noah, barely taller now to see over the fence, had launched himself into the fray, a small, furious whirlwind. Fists and shouts. He'd taken a punch to the nose, the metallic taste of blood filling his mouth, but he hadn't backed down. He'd stood his ground, a tiny sentinel guarding his brother, until a teacher intervened. Daniel, bruised but triumphant, had clapped him on the back, a silent acknowledgement of their unbreakable bond. "You always got my back, little bro," Daniel had said, and Noah had swelled with pride. That phrase, that unspoken promise, had become the bedrock of their relationship. As they grew older, their bond deepened, evolving from childhood camaraderie into amateur, unwavering support system. When Daniel decided to propose to Leah, Noah, Wash's chief confidant, his sounding board, his co-conspirator in planning the perfect proposal, and when the financial realities of a lavish wedding began to loom large, it was Noah Woe stepped in, quietly offering a substantial sum from his nascent IT business. "Consider it an investment in your happiness, bro," Noah had said, brushing off Daniel's protests. He wanted Daniel to have the wedding of his dreams, a celebration worthy of the love he believed Daniel and Leah shared. He even helped Daniel secure a job within his out company, a gesture of brotherly love and a belief in Daniel's potential. Daniel, with his charm and natural leadership, quickly rose through the ranks, becoming an invaluable asset to Noah's growing enterprise. They were a formidable team, brothers in blood, partners in business, their futures inextricably linked. Noah saw Daniel's success as Hisana, a shared triumph, a testament to the strength of their family. He had built his company, in part, for Daniel, for their shared future, for the legacy they would create together. He believed in Daniel, in their bond, in the unspoken promise that they would always have each other's backs. He had given everything, and he believed, with every fiber of his being, that Daniel would do the same. He was about to learn, in the cruelest way imaginable, that some bonds, no matter how strong, can be broken by the insidious poison of betrayal. Something felt off. The first cracks in Noah's carefully constructed world appeared subtly, almost imperceptibly, like hairline fractures in a seemingly solid foundation. Leah, Daniel's wife, began to frequent Noah's office with an increasing regularity that felt off. At first, her visits were cloaked in the guise of wifely concern, just bringing Daniel his lunch. Or thought I'd check in on him, he's been working so hard. Noah, ever the accommodating brother-in-law, would offer her coffee, engage in polite small talk, and then retreat to his own work, dismissing the faint prickle of unease that her presence stirred within him. But the visits grew more frequent, her excuses more transparent. She'd linger, her eyes darting around the office, her gaze often settling on Daniel with an intensity that felt less like wifely affection and more like surveillance. There were too many glances, too many awkward silences. When Noah would walk into a room where Leah and Daniel were a strange tension, almost imperceptible to an outsider, began to permeate Theophilus' air, a silent hum of unspoken words and hidden agendas. Noah, with his keen observational skills, honed by years of debugging complex code, started noticing other things. Daniel, once meticulous about his schedule, began coming home late, his explanations vague and often contradictory. He'd claimed to be working on a big project, but the telltale signs of a long night at the office, the faint scent of stale coffee, fetid slump of his shoulders, were conspicuously absent. Instead, there was a new cologne, a subtle shift in his demeanor, a nervous energy that vibrated beneath his forced casualness. He'd become guarded, his phone clutched possessively, his conversation shut, his eyes darting around as if expecting to be caught. The easy camaraderie they once shared, the late-night talks about business strategies and future plans, had evaporated, replaced by a strained politeness, a palpable distance. The unease in Noah's gut intensified, a persistent, nagging whisper that something was deeply wrong. He tried to talk to Daniel, to ask him what was going on, but Daniel would deflect, change the subject, or lash out in uncharacteristic bursts of anger. "You're imagining things, Noah," he'd snap, his eyes wide with a fear Noah couldn't quite decipher. "Just focus on your own work." But Noah couldn't focus. The knot in his stomach tightened with each passing day, each unanswered question. He started doing his own quiet investigation, a subtle probing of Daniel's schedule, a casual inquiry with mutual friends. He didn't want to believe it, didn't want to uncover anything that would shatter the image of his perfect brother, but the evidence, circumstantial at first, began to mount. Then came the undeniable proof. A late-night text message, accidentally left open on Daniel's work computer. A name flashing across the screen. Emily. Emily, a new hire in the marketing department. A bright, vivacious woman with a laugh that echoed through Theophilus' hallways. The message was innocuous enough on its own. A casual inquiry about a project deadline, but the string of messages that followed, hidden beneath layers after lated conversations, painted a far more intimate picture. Pet names, inside jokes, plans for clandestine meetings. Daniel was cheating on Leah. The realization hit Noah with the force of a physical blow. His brother, his loyal, dependable brother, was betraying his wife. And not just his wife, but the woman Noah had helped him marry, the woman he had welcomed into their family. The betrayal was a bitter pill to swallow, but it was nothing compared to the agonizing choice that now confronted him. He confronted Daniel the next morning. The text messages displayed on his phone, a damning indictment of his brother's deceit. Daniel's face drained of color, his usual bravado replaced by a desperate, pleading vulnerability. "Noah, please," he whispered, his voice hoarse with panic. "Don't tell Leah, please. She'll destroy me. You know how she is. She'll take everything. My career, my reputation, everything." He painted a picture of Leah's, a vengeful, unforgiving force, a woman who would stop at nothing to exact her pound of flesh. He begged Noah, appealed to their shared history, to their unbreakable bond, to their years Noah had always had his back. Noah, torn between his loyalty to his brother and his sense of moral obligation, found himself in an impossible position. He had always protected Daniel, always put him first. But this was different. This was a betrayal of the highest order, a betrayal that threatened to unravel the very fabric of their family. He looked at his brother, at the fear in his eyes, and a cold dread settled in his stomach. He knew, with a chilling certainty, that this was just the beginning of a much larger, much uglier story, and was about to be dragged into the heart of it. The ultimate setup there in Noah's office was thick with unspoken tension. The confrontation with Daniel Hard left a bitter taste in his mouth, a lingering sense of unease that gnawed at his peace. Hard agreed, reluctantly, to keep Daniel's secret to protect his brother from Leah's wrath. But the decision felt wrong, a betrayal of his own moral compass. He tried to rationalize it, to convince himself that he was protecting Daniel, protecting their family, but the truth was, he was complicit in a lie. And the universe, it seemed, had a cruel sense of irony. One evening, as Noah was preparing to leave the office, the door burst open. Leah stood there, her eyes blazing with a cold fury Noah had never witnessed. Her usually impeccable appearance was disheveled, her hair askew, her clothes rumpled. In her hand, she clutched her phone, its screen glowing with a series of damning screenshots. Daniel stood behind her, his face pale, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and something else Noah couldn't quite decipher, a subtle, almost imperceptible flicker of relief. "Noah," Leah shrieked, her voice echoing through the silent office. How could you betray your own brother?" Noah stared at her, bewildered. "What are you talking about, Leah?" he asked, his voice calm despite the sudden surge of adrenaline. She thrust the phone into his face, the screenshots glaringly apparent. They were private texts, intimate exchanges, but they weren't between Daniel and Emily. They were between Noah and Emily, or at least they appeared to be. The messages were twisted, manipulated, taken out of context, designed to paint a picture of a clandestine affair between Noah and Emily. Noah's mind reeled. He recognized some of the phrases, innocuous work-related banter, but they had been expertly recontextualized, spliced with fabricated lines to create a narrative of illicit passion. "I miss your touch," one message read, supposedly from Noah to Emily. "Can't wait for our next late-night meeting." Another. Noah felt a wave of nausea. This was a setup. A meticulously planned, devastatingly perfect setup. He looked at Daniel. His brother, the man he had just protected, the man he had sacrificed his own integrity for. Daniel stood there, silent. His eyes met Noah's, and in that moment, Noah saw it, the betrayal. Daniel didn't defend him. He didn't utter a single word in his brother's defense. He simply stood there, a silent accomplice, allowing Leah's venomous accusations to wash over Noah, to drown him in a sea of fabricated guilt. The silence was deafening, a betrayal far more profound than any spoken word. It was a choice. Daniel had chosen to throw him under the bus, to sacrifice his own brother, to save his own skin. Leah, fueled by a righteous indignation, screamed, her voice rising to a crescendo of accusations. She called him a snake, a backstabber, a betrayer. Of family, she slapped him, the sharp sting across his cheek a physical manifestation of the emotional pain that was tearing him apart. "You disgust me," she shrieked, her eyes blazing with hatred. Then, with a final contemptuous glare, she stormed out of the office, leaving Noah standing there, reeling, the echoes of her accusations reverberating in the sudden silence. The world tilted on its axis. The man who had always had his brother's back, the man who had always been the protector, was now utterly, irrevocably alone. Daniel approached him slowly, his head bowed, his voice a barely audible whisper. "I had to, Noah. Please understand. She would have divorced me. She would have taken everything. I couldn't lose her." Noah stared at him, a cold, hard knot forming in his stomach. He saw not a brother, but a coward. A man who had chosen self-preservation over loyalty, deceit, over truth. The words were a fresh wound, a confirmation of the ultimate betrayal. Daniel had not just protected a lie, he had offered Noah as the sacrifice. And in that moment, Noah knew, with a chilling certainty, that their bond, the bond he had cherished above all else, was irrevocably broken. The game was over. And Noah, the loyal brother, was now the scapegoat, the villain in a story he hadn't written. The path to revenge, however, was just beginning to unfold. Breakdown and isolation the world Noah had meticulously built. Brick by painstaking brick, crumbled round him with devastating speed. The day after Leah's theatrical performance, he walked into Sisyphus, the place he had poured his heart and soul into, only to find the locks changed, licenses revoked. A curt email from Daniel's lawyer, cold and impersonal, informed him that his services were no longer required, citing gross misconduct and breach of trust. The company he had founded, the vision he had nurtured, was ripped from his grasp. He was locked out, not just physically, but metaphorically, from the very foundation of his professional identity. The irony was a bitter pill to swallow. He, the architect of their success, was now cast out. Branded a pariah. His reputation, once pristine, was systematically dismantled. Leah, with her cunning and a network of social connections, ensured that the fabricated narrative of Noah's affair with Emily spread like wildfire through their family and social circles. Whispers followed him everywhere, glances turned into glares, and once friendly faces now averted their eyes. Family gatherings, once a source of comfort and laughter, became unbearable. His aunts and uncles, who had once praised his ambition and loyalty, now looked at him with a mixture of pity and disgust. Cousins he had grown up with, friends he had shared countless memories with, now kept their distance, their silence a louder condemnation than any shouted accusation. He was isolated, adrift in a sea of judgment, with no one to turn to, no one who believed his side of the story. Daniel, his brother, remained conspicuously silent. his absence a gaping wound in Noah's already shattered world. The isolation was a physical weight, pressing down on him, stealing his breath. He recreated Dinto himself, the four walls of his small apartment becoming his only sanctuary. He stopped his warring calls, ignored texts, and let the world outside fade into a blurry, indistinct hum. The vibrant, ambitious man who had once thrived on connection and purpose was replaced by a hollowed-out shell, consumed by a profound, debilitating depression. He would spend hours staring at the ceiling, the silence of his apartment amplifying the chaotic cacophony of his thoughts. The betrayal, the injustice, the sheer magnitude of Daniel's cowardice, it all swirled within him, a toxic brew of anger and despair. He cried alone, the tears a hot, bitter stream against his cold cheeks, his body racked with sudden sobs. He was ignored by everyone, a pariah in his own family, a ghost in the life he had once so eagerly embraced. Asterisk, he didn't just protect a lie. He offered me as the sacrifice. He threw me into the fire. Anthon, he watched me burn. And the worst part, he didn't even flinch. The man I would have died for, the man I had always protected, chose to save himself, chose to save his reputation at the cost of mine. He sacrificed me on the altar of his own cowardice, and in doing so, he didn't just betray me, he destroyed a part of himself, a part of us that could never be rebuilt. The bond we had, the bond I thought wasn't breakable, was severed with a single, silent choice, and I was left to pick up the pieces, alone, in the wreckage of a life I no longer recognized. Noah's days became a monotonous cycle of waking, existing, and enduring. The unseverbrant colors of his world had faded to a dull gray. Food tasted like ash, music sounded like a noise, and the sun, when it dared to peek through his drawn blinds, felt like an unwelcome intrusion. He lost weight, his clothes, hanging loosely on his frame, a stark visual representation of the emotional toll the betrayal had taken. He was a man drowning, slowly, agonizingly, in a sea of despair, with no hand reaching out to pull him back to shore. The only thing that kept him going, a tiny, flickering ember in the darkness, was the faint, almost imperceptible whisper of a thought. This isn't over. Not yet. A seed of something cold and hard, something akin to a promise, began to germinate in the barren landscape of his heart. A promise of reckoning, a promise of justice, a promise of revenge. Asterisk. The unexpected tournaments crawled by, each one a testament to Noah's resilience, or perhaps his stubborn refusal to completely break. He had found a new, smaller apartment, started taking on freelance IT work, slowly rebuilding a semblance of a life. The pain was still there, a dullard beneath the surface, but it no longer consumed him. He had learned to live with it, to carry it, like a phantom limb. He had built walls around his heart, impenetrable and high, protecting himself from further hurt. He had accepted his new reality, a life without Daniel, a life without the family he had once cherished. He was a lone wolf, scarred but surviving. Then the phone rang. An unknown number. He almost didn't answer it. His finger hovered over the reject button, but something, a flicker of curiosity, a morbid fascination, made him tap accept Noah. The voice on the other end was hesitant, almost timid. It was Daniel. Noah's blood ran cold. He hadn't heard that voice in months, not since the day Daniel had whispered his pathetic excuse for betrayal. He felt a surge of emotions, anger, disgust, a fleeting pang of the old affection he had tried so hard to bury. He remained silent, letting silence stretch, letting Daniel squirm. "Noah, please, don't hang up," Daniel pleaded, his voice cracking. I need your help. It's Leah." Noah's jaw tightened. Leah, the architect of his ruin. He felt a sarcastic laugh bubble up in his throat, but he suppressed it. "What about her?" he asked, his voice flat, devoid of emotion. Daniel's story tumbled out. A pathetic cascade of desperation and self-pity. Leah, it turned out, was now cheating on Daniel with her gym trainer, a hulking, tattooed man named Mike, whose Instagram feed was a testament to his sculpted physique and his penchant for expensive watches. The irony was not lost on Noah. The woman who had so vehemently accused him of infidelity was now a betrayer herself, and it was delicious. "She wants a divorce, Noah," Daniel continued, his voice thick with tears. "And she's planning to take everything, the house, the cars, half of my savings. She's even threatening to expose some sensitive information about the company. She's ruthless, Noah. You know how she is." Daniel, the man who had thrown his brother under the bus to save his own skin, was now facing the same ruthless tactics he had enabled. Karma, Noah thought, was a beautiful, beautiful thing. "Please, bro," Daniel begged, his voice breaking. "I know I messed up. I know I was wrong. I should have stood up for you. I should have told her the truth. But I was scared, Noah. I was so scared of losing everything. Please, I need you now. You're the only one who can help me. You're the smart one. You always know how to fix things." The words were a desperate plea, a pathetic echo of their shared past. Daniel, the strong, charismatic older brother, was now reduced to a sniveling mess, begging for the help of the brother he had so cruelly betrayed. Noah listened, his face impassive, his heart a block of ice. He felt no pity, no compassion, only a cold, calculating resolve. He had always been the one to fix things, to clean up Daniel's messes, but this time, the game was different. This time, it wasn't a fixing he was planning, and the plan was going to be sweet. Noah hung up the call without speaking, the click of the phone a final, definitive statement. He stared at the blank wall opposite him, a slow, predatory smile spreading across his face. Daniel wanted his help. Daniel wanted him to fix things. Oh, he would fix things, all right. He would fix them. In a way Daniel, and especially Leah, would never forget. The unexpected turn had just opened a new chapter, a chapter of carefully orchestrated retribution. The stage was set. The players were in position, and Noah, the loyal brother, was about to become the master of his own, very sweet revenge. The game was on, and Noah was playing to win. The sweet revenge plan. Noah didn't ignore Daniel's desperate plea. He absorbed it, processed it, and then, with a chilling precision, began to weave it into his own intricate tapestry of retribution. The phone call had been a catalyst, a spark, that ignited the smoldering embers of his anger and humiliation. He had always been the one to fix things, to solve problems, to clean up messes. And now, Daniel, the architect of his ruin, was begging him to fix his own. The irony was almost poetic. But this time, Noah wasn't fixing, he was orchestrating. He was planning a symphony of downfall, a meticulously choreographed ballet of exposure and consequence. His first move was to feign compliance. He called Daniel back, his voice carefully modulated to convey a reluctant understanding, a hint of the old brotherly concern. "All right, Daniel," he'd said, a subtle tremor in his voice that Daniel, in his desperation, mistook for lingering pain. Tell me. Everything. We'll figure this out. Daniel, relieved, poured out the details. Leah's affair with her gym trainer. Mike, her demands for a divorce. Her threats to expose Daniel's own past indiscretions and financial dealings. He even mentioned less increasingly erratic behavior. Her sudden, lavish spending, and her mysterious late-night phone calls. Noah listened, absorbing every detail, every nuance, every piece of information that could be weaponized. Noah then initiated contact with Leah. He arranged a private meeting, choosing a discreet, upscale cafe far from their usual haunts. He presented himself as the sympathetic brother-in-law, concerned for Daniel, but also, subtly, for Leah. He played on her vanity, her sense of superiority, her belief that she was the smartest one in the room. He spoke of Daniel's despair, of his willingness to fight for their marriage, of his desire to keep their affair. He subtly hinted at Daniel's own past mistakes, creating a false sense of shared understanding, a common enemy. Leah, basking in the attention, and perhaps a little flattered by Noah's apparent concern, began to open up. She confessed to the affair with Mike, detailing its passionate intensity, her disdain for Daniel, and her plans to leave him with nothing. She even, in a moment of hubris, boasted about how she had been subtly siphoning funds from Daniel's accounts, and how she had been providing insider information to a rival IT firm, a company she was now planning to join. Every word showed, every boast, every confession was meticulously recorded by a discreetly placed voice recorder in Noah's pocket. He let her talk, letting her dig her own grave, her words echoing testament to her avarice and deceit. But Noah wasn't just relying on confessions. He was building an ironclad case. He hired a private investigator, a former colleague from his IT days who specialized in digital forensics. The investigator, a quiet, efficient woman named Sarah, delved deep into Leah's digital footprint. She uncovered a treasure trove of incriminating evidence, encrypted messages between Leah and Mike, detailing their trysts and their plans to defraud Daniel. Financial cords showing large, unexplained transfers of money from Daniel's accounts to offshore accounts. And, most damning of all, a series of emails between Leah and the rival IT firm, detailing confidential company information, trade secrets, and client lists. The evidence was overwhelming, a meticulously constructed web of betrayal, fraud, and corporate spionage. Noah had not just found proof of her cheating, he had found proof of her criminality. He had gathered everything, legal, emotional, digital, a comprehensive series of Leah's true character. The sweet revenge was no longer just a fantasy. It was a meticulously crafted reality, ready to be unleashed. Asterisk. The public room in the air in the private dining room of the upscale restaurant was thick with the clinking of silverware, the murmur of polite conversation, and the underlying hum of forced conviviality. It was Daniel's annual family dinner, a tradition that had once been a source of joy for Noah, but now felt like a carefully constructed facade. Leah, resplendent in a designer dress, held court at the head of the table, her laughter a little too loud, her smile a little too bright. Daniel, oblivious to the storm brewing, beamed at his wife, still clinging to the illusion of his perfect life. Noah sat quietly, observing, a silent predator in a room full of unsuspecting prey. His heart, once a raw open wound, was now a cold, calculated tangent. He had waited for this moment, had planned for it, had savored the of its arrival as dessert was served, and the conversation lulled. Noah cleared his throat. All eyes to Neto him. Daniel, a little surprised, offered a hesitant smile. "Something you want to say, Noah?" he asked, a hint of the old condescension in his voice. Noah met his gaze, a faint, almost imperceptible smile playing on his lips. "Just a little something I thought the family might find illuminating." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a sleek, black USB drive. He placed it on the pristine white tablecloth, its presence a stark, almost missing contrast to the delicate china and gleaming silverware. "I was called the Snake," Noah said, his voice clear and resonant, cutting through the polite murmurs. "Time to meet the real one." A ripple of confusion spread through the table. Leah's eyes narrowed, a flicker of unease crossing her face. Daniel, still smiling, looked bewildered. Noah, with a practiced flick of his wrist, inserted the USB into a small, portable projector he had discreetly set up earlier. The screen, previously displaying a benign landscape, flickered to life, displaying a simple folder labeled Leah's Truth. He clicked on the first file, a voice recording. Les' voice, clear and unmistakable, filled the room. She was talking to Mike, her gym trainer, her voice laced with contempt as she spoke of Daniel. "He's so pathetic, Mike. He thinks I actually love him. He's just a means to an end. I'm going to take him for everything he's got." The room fell silent, a stunned, horrified silence. Forks clattered onto plates, glass remained suspended mid-air. All eyes were on Leah, whose face had drained of all color, her eyes wide with a mixture of shock and dawning horror. Daniel, his mouth agape, stared at the projector screen, then at Leah, then back at the screen, his face a canvas of disbelief and dawning realization. Noah clicked on the next file, a series of screenshots of Les' messages with Mike, explicit and damning. Then came the financial records, the transfers, the offshore accounts. And finally, the emails with the rival IT firm detailing the corporate Eastbridge, the betrayal of Daniel's company. The atmosphere in the room was electric, charged with a palpable tension. Leah tried to speak, to protest, but no words came. Her carefully constructed world was imploding bar her very eyes. Daniel, his face a mask of utter devastation, looked at Noah, a silent plea in his eyes. But Noah met his gaze with a cold, unwavering stare. "That's how it feels, Daniel," Noah said, his voice devoid of emotion, "to be thrown under the bus, to be sacrificed for someone else's convenience, to have your life, your reputation, your trust shattered by the very people you believed in." He then turned to the rest of the family, their faces a mixture of shock, anger, and disgust. "For years," Noah continued, his voice rising slightly, "I stood by Daniel. I protected him. I built a company for him. And when he needed to save his own skin, he threw me under Thebus, let his wife frame me for an affair I didn't commit. He let my reputation be ruined, my company stolen, my life destroyed, all to protect his precious marriage to this woman." He gestured to Leah, who was now openly weeping, her face buried in her hands. "He chose her lies over my truth. He chose his comfort over my integrity. And now you all know the truth. The real snake in this family wasn't me." With a final, lingering look at Daniel, whose shoulders were now shaking with silent sobs, Noah picked up the USB drive. "Enjoy your dinner," he said, his voice chillingly calm. He turned and walked away, leaving behind a scene of utter devastation. The silence that followed was broken only by Leah's ragged sobs and Daniel's choked gasps. Noah didn't look back. He didn't need to. The public ruin was complete. The sweet revenge was served. And for the first time in a long time, Noah felt a profound sense of peace. The game was over, and Noah had won. The path to true closure, however, was still ahead. Asterisk. Closure and moving on. The aftermath of the family dinner was a maelstrom of recriminations and shattered illusions. Leah, stripped of her carefully constructed facade, was left with nothing. The evidence Noah had meticulously gathered, combined with the public humiliation ensured thought, her divorce from Daniel left her financially destitute and socially ostracized. Her plans to join the rival IT firm evaporated, her reputation in the corporate world irrevocably niched. She disappeared from their lives as quickly as she had entered. A cautionary tale whispered in hushed tones. Daniel, too, faced the consequences of his choices. The public exposure of Leah's betrayal and his own complicity in Noah's ruin shattered his carefully cultivated image. He lost all of his assets in the divorce. His professional standing took a significant hit, and their respect he once commanded within the family evaporated. He was left with a hollow victory, a marriage saved at the cost of his integrity and his brother's trust. He was a man adrift, haunted by the ghost of his past actions, a shadow of his former self. Noah, however, began to reclaim his life. The public vindication, while satisfying, was merely a stepping stone. He focused on rebuilding his company, his reputation, and, most importantly, himself. The IT business, once struggling under Daniel's mismanagement, began to thrive under Noah's renewed leadership. He brought in new talent, implemented innovative strategies, and slowly, painstakingly, rebuilt the trust of his clients and employees. His name, once synonymous with scandal, became a symbol of resilience and integrity. He found solace in his work, in the tangible act of creation, in the quiet satisfaction of seeing his vision come to life. He also embarked on a journey of personal healing. He started therapy, delving into the complex layers of his own pain, his own need for control, his own struggle with forgiveness. He learned that true closure wasn't about revenge, but about releasing himself from the emotional shackles of the past. He reconnected with old friends, those who had stood by him, those who had believed in him even when the world had turned its back. He found joy in simple things: a quiet evening with a good book, a challenging hike in the mountains. Of his friends, he was no longer defined by the betrayal, but by his strength, his resilience, his unwavering belief in himself. Months later, as Noah was closing up his office, a figure appeared in the doorway. It was Daniel, his older brother, gaunt and pale, his eyes red-rimmed and filled with a desperate teplia. He looked like a man who had been through hell and back, a stark contrast to the confident, charismatic man Noah had once admired. "Noah, Daniel began, his voice thick with unshed tears. I need to talk to you. I'm so sorry. I know I messed up. I know I betrayed you. I should have stood up for you. I should have told the truth. I've lost of everything. Leah's gone. My career is in shambles. I have nothing left. Please, bro, can you ever forgive me?" He fell to his knees, his body racked with sobs, a pathetic figure begging for absolution. Noah looked at him, his face impassive. He saw the raw pain, the genuine remorse, but heffled nothing. The well of his compassion had run dry, drained by years of Daniel's selfishness and cowardice. He remembered the childhood fights, the times he had defended Daniel, the unwavering loyalty he had shown. He remembered the day Daniel had thrown him under the bus, the silent betrayal that had shattered his world. He remembered its long, lonely nights, the tears, the despair, and in that moment, he realized something profound. He had already forgiven Daniel, not in the way Daniel wanted, not in a way that would erase the past or rebuild their broken bond, but in a way that set Noah free. He had forgiven Daniel by letting go of the anger, the resentment, the need for retribution. He had forgiven him by choosing his own peace over Daniel's pain. Noah stepped forward, not to embrace his brother, but to stand over him, his shadow falling across Daniel's bowed head. His voice was calm, clear, and utterly devoid of emotion. "I forgave you the day I stopped needing you." He paused, letting the words hang in the air, letting their full weight settle upon Daniel. "I forgave you when I realized that your choice had nothing to do with me, and everything to do with who you are. I forgave you when I stopped waiting for your apology, for your validation, for your redemption. I forgave you when I chose to reclaim my own life, my own worth, my own future." He looked at Daniel, a broken man kneeling before him, and felt a profound sense of detachment. "You made your bed, Daniel. Now lie in it." With a final, decisive movement, Noah turned and slammed the door, the sound echoing through the silent office, a definitive end to a chapter that had lasted far too long. He didn't look back. He didn't need to. He was free. He was moving on, and he was finally, truly, home. Asterisk. They say forgiveness is a gift you give to yourself, and it is. But sometimes, the greatest gift you can give yourself is the courage to walk away, to close the door on what no longer serves you, to choose your own peace over someone else's pain. I gave up everything to protect my brother, but when it was his turn to stand up for me, he threw me under the bus to save his cheating wife. And now, he wants my help to fix the same marriage he destroyed me for. I wasn't just betrayed by blood, I was betrayed by choice. And that choice, that betrayal, ultimately set me free. It forced me to rebuild, to redefine, to discover a strength I never knew I possessed. It taught me that some bonds, no matter how deep, are not worth preserving if they come at the cost of your own soul. And sometimes the greatest act of love, the greatest act of loyalty, is to yourself. To choose your own path, to forge your own destiny, to walk away from the wreckage and build something new, something real, something that is truly, finally, your own. Noah, sitting in his thriving IT office, a subtle smile on his face, looking out at the city skyline. He takes a deep breath, a sense of peace settling over him. He picks up a framed photo on his desk, a younger Noah and Daniel, arms around each other, smiling, innocent. He looks at it for a moment, then gently places it face down. He turns back to his computer, a new project on the screen, a new future unfolding. Asterisk.